Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Lisa Balash on the podcast. She's also known as Kettlebellbombshell. You can follow her on Instagram under that name. She's the creator of As Seen on TV, Kettlebellbombshell DVDs. She's also worked with celebrities such as Jay Cutler, the bodybuilder. If anyone out there is familiar with him, well, obviously you should be if you're watching this podcast. But it's just so great to have her on. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, and also Larry Fitzgerald, the wide receiver.
I was gonna bring that up because bring that up because being from Minnesota and he was from Minnesota.
Oh,
yeah, I was gonna geek out later on and be like, okay, everyone, I gotta really. She's worked out with Larry Fitzgerald too, and that's just so awesome. I remember I watched him actually play in high school a few times because I lived close to where he went to high school. So I remember when I was like 6 or 7, he was in high school watching him play. So that was really, really cool. But Lisa, first of all, what's the weather like where you're at right now?
It is so hot. It is so hot. It's like probably 106, 108.
So you're in Las Vegas?
Somewhere like that. Yeah, I'm in Las Vegas. I'm actually sweating right now.
I gotta say, as people can see by the lack of sunlight here, I'm in Minnesota, and it's a very cloudy day. Which, I mean, if you have the skin tone that I have, that's like your best bet to ever like go outside and be a participating member of society. Because I just have my thick Norwegian skin that's basically just so made for the winters, but not made at all for any type of sunlight. But before I depress everyone with that, Lisa, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and adapt this lifestyle?
Well, okay, so it's kind of interesting. So back in the late 1900s, no, in the late 90s, I was dealing in a casino here in Las Vegas called the Rio, and I had met a friend of mine at work was going to the gym, and I just was kind of going to the gym, and I wanted to just basically look better, but I was always thin. I just didn't have like a muscular body or anything like that. And I remember I would get off of work and I would watch Kiana Tom on ESPN, and I would watch her show, Flex Appeal, it's called. And I follow her on Instagram. She's really cool. And so I would just watch her show and I would think, oh my gosh, I would love to have like my arms look like that and whatever. And she used to have Monica Brandt on her show a lot. So I didn't know who Monica was back then, but now, of course. And I would watch it and I would always think, gosh, like I really want to look like this. So I met this friend of mine at work and he, offered to help me in the gym. And so when I first started going, like, I didn't know you trained your whole body, like in parts and this and that. I was like, I want to work on my legs and my butt. And that was all I wanted to do. So, and he's like, no, we're going to do our shoulders. And like, so to me, that was just like, what do you mean do our shoulders? But I started training with him and I really, really liked it. He was really like very knowledgeable and really smart and just really like motivated me. And so every day I had so much fun when I would work out with him that I really decided like, I really want to do this. And I want to look better. So basically overall, and back then I used to be a smoker, God forbid. And I quit smoking and I started to adapt a healthier lifestyle. So when I started to think about competing in fitness, it was more like, instead of like, I would smoke every couple hours, instead of doing that, I would eat a meal every couple hours, like a healthy meal. So I just started changing my entire way of living into a lifestyle that was more geared toward being healthy on the inside versus what I look like on the outside. Because, a lot of people focus on the aesthetic of weight training and everything, which is totally fine. But you have to understand when you're taking care of yourself internally, it shows up on the external. And that's what people really kind of don't want to hear. They want to hear the workout is the answer when it's actually the nutrition and the health part is the answer that gives you the exterior that you're seeking,
Well, and I always say, too, it's just so important to have that mindset change as well to go along with the physical change, because I've had some of the most in-shape people on the planet on the podcast, and they talk about like how when they first got started, they just wanted to look good because they thought that would make them feel better, but they didn't realize, I mean, they'd be telling me stories about, like how I had, absolutely just shredded abs and I had, these huge arms, but I still didn't feel good about myself because I wasn't able to make the mental adjustment along with the physical change. So that is also just so important. But I love to ask for all the health and fitness guests. I mean, I always say if you're to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a struggle for you when you were getting started, just finding out what worked best for you? Because I always say if you're to walk up to someone and say, wow, what did you train for this body part or that body part? What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
That is true. Yes. I actually was super fortunate because I met Jeannie Paparone, who is still my coach to this day. We're talking 20 years ago. I met Jeannie in 1998 at Gold's, and she's amazing. She's a pro bodybuilder now, but at that time she was just, I think she was just starting to get back into competing in bodybuilding. And I hired her to train me just because I was like, I want to learn some new stuff to do. And I worked out with her a couple times, and she kind of planted the seed in my head, like, you should do, a competition. And I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe. And she's like, yeah, you should. And then they didn't come out with Figure, NPC Figure, until 2001. And so when I found out about Figure, because I couldn't do all the fitness skills and I wanted to, but I really wasn't like, I didn't know how to start, actually, because back then the internet wasn't, you don't type something up and say, who's the best fitness coach? You have nobody except for like look around you, look in a magazine. So a lot of the information that I got back then was in the back of the magazines, Oxygen, Muscle Mag. And we used to have a Muscle Mag store here in town. And I would go in the store and I'd go in the back of the store and read all the magazines, look at all the fitness models. And you didn't have the internet. So you had to read about them, and then you had to find out on your own from local people how to do things. So when Jeannie and I started working together, she, kind of constructed a diet for me, and I tweaked it myself because I'm probably one of the only fitness competitors that really doesn't eat chicken. I do all turkey, and it's like chicken never worked for me. I never looked that lean when I would eat chicken, but when I eat turkey, I look like a completely different person. And you would think, well, they're both kind of the same, but they're totally not. So for my body, so Jeannie would even say to me, well, what are you eating? If I was doing a show and I didn't look as lean, I'd say, well, I just got chicken because it was easier. She's like, get back on your turkey. So it's like, even for that, something you would think, well, chicken works for everybody. I rarely ever eat chicken. So it just doesn't work for me. So like that right there is, backing up what you just said.
That is the first guest that we've ever had on that has just said she only does turkey and she doesn't eat chicken. Yeah, that is absolutely, I mean, there's always a first for everything. So I love to say, already within the first 10 minutes, we already have a first for her. So, that's awesome.
And on my cheat, once a week, and I don't really call it a cheat, but like to switch it up, I'll do bison. So I do turkey all week, and then one day I do bison.
I've never had bison before. What does that taste like?
Oh, I love it.
What does that taste
like? I
love
it. Butter. It tastes like butter. It's so awesome. It is really awesome. It tastes like, because I don't really like ground beef. Like I don't eat traditional like steak. I don't like it, and I don't really like ground beef. And one of the things that Jeannie and I both agree on, which is kind of funny, is she kind of does the eat right for your body type, eat right for your blood type. And so everybody's blood type also affects what you should eat. And Jay Cutler also does this, Jay Cutler, the bodybuilder. And I'm an AB. So for AB people, it actually says avoid chicken and avoid red meat. And so for me, I don't eat the red meat, but for some reason the bison works. So whatever it is a little bit different, but it is amazing.
I'm actually going to have to look up my blood type and then find out what that says about me, because I find that really, really interesting. And I know there's some places close to me that have like bison burgers, so I might actually want to give that a try. Awesome. I might want to have to give that a try every once in a while, because that does sound interesting. But one of the fun questions that I love to ask every guest that we have on the show, because everyone's genetics are different, and that's a big thing that I think so many people don't realize, that your genetics play a huge role in what you're going to end up being able to achieve. But everyone always has that one body part when they get started working out that really, really takes off, where they don't have to train it as much. And then everyone always has that one body part that just lags behind, that they have to just train to overdrive. I'll give you my examples first, but for me, my back, being that in college, I worked jobs where, you're lifting heavy packages, up to like 150 pounds, for 8 hours a day into trucks while I was going to college. You're going to get a really, really strong developed back, or you're going to quit. Those are basically the two scenarios that really presented themselves. But for me, my legs, I'm 6'3", so my lower body is just absolutely shot, where I have to train it into overdrive to get it to look like any semblance like I work out. And then the number one, calves, because that's the number one genetic thing, where you're
tall.
Yeah, well, that too.
When you're tall, and I'm tall, I'm 5'8". For a female, I'm tall. It's so hard because the muscles are so long. Yep. And it's just, but like you said, the genetics, that's a huge factor of whatever your nationality is and that kind of thing. So your back is really strong and really big. So a lot of times too, for me, my lower body it used to be, now this is funny, I'm 49 years old. It used to be the hardest part for me to get was like my glutes and my hamstrings to tie in. Now that comes like this. Now my shoulders are the thing that want to disappear when I start dieting. So in Figure, you have to have big shoulders. They want you to have round shoulders. And for me, it's like, I get them when I'm training them off season, but as soon as I start my diet and my cardio, they just are the first thing that go away because they're my smallest muscle that I've, actually worked on and built. My back is good, my glutes, okay, everything else is great, and my shoulders are like wah wah, like, and it's like come back, come back. So that's kind of why I've been adding the bison back in my diet too, because I feel like the food, if I'm dieting too strict, and I'm another person that's a freak because I do wonderful with carbohydrates. If I cut my carbs out, I shrink down to nothing so fast. If I add carbs in, even before bedtime, I get so lean. And people are like, how low do you go with your carbs? I'm like, I actually have to increase my carbs. So
49 years old and she has arms like that. I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Come on, people.
But see, that's hope for you.
Yeah.
But when you're 49, you have arms like that.
Yeah. See, there's hope for everyone out there. But how long into your journey before you decided, hey, I could do a bodybuilding show? This sounds like something I'd be interested in.
Okay, I started competing in figure the first time they had it, 2001. And I stuck with it all the way. I was doing national level. Like every time I would do an amateur show, I would qualify for national. So that was like my objective with the amateur shows. I only won one amateur show, which was the biggest one, the Emerald Cup. I won that in 2004. I won my class, not the whole show. And then I qualified for the nationals, and I just kept on the national circuit until 2007. And see, back then, figure was saturated with girls. You would show up at a show, there was 50 to 60 competitors per class. Now there's like 10 if you're lucky. Like it's crazy because they all went to bikini. So I didn't know that. So I left competing in figure, and then I started competing in kettlebell lifting as a sport, the Russian sport. I did that for kettlebells and Pilates. I did only without weight training for approximately 10 years. And then last year at the Olympia 2018, I see Jeannie all the time because I buy some food from her. And I was just like, she told me, yeah, I'm getting some girls ready for the Vegas Classic for figure. And I said, I was like, because I was already kind of lean. I said, I should do that again. I haven't done that in so long. She goes, oh, yeah, girl, you should do the Masters. You'll kill it. And I thought, Masters? I'm going to do the Open too. Like, I don't care. So, because like, that's my head. I don't think about my age ever. So I just go, I could do both. Like, so I did both. I did the Masters and the Open, and I won both. And then that qualified me for the show I'm doing on July 27th, which is 5.5 weeks away. It's the NPC USA's. That was the last show I did in 2007, and now it's the first one I'm going to do. And hopefully the top 2 spots get their pro card, so it's a pro qualifier. So training hard for that.
That really needs to whip everyone else into shape. If the person who won the Masters wins the overall as well, that must mean to get those younger people like, are you kidding? Come on, get your.
Well, you know what? You know what about that though? When you're in the Masters category, it's a lot harder than people think because those women have been training for a long time. And they have muscle maturity, which is one of the things that young people don't have. So it's not like this is the only sport where younger is not better. It's middle age is better because if you've been training, if you just started, say you're 18 years old, because one of the girls that competes in my class, she was 18 and she got second to me and she looks amazing. But the only thing going against her is she's so young that she doesn't have the muscle maturity. So she's gaining that, obviously. And 10 more years from now, she'll, probably dominate everybody. So if she sticks with it. So that's the thing, though. So if you're 18, 19 years old, and even the top figure pro in the world right now, she started competing at 18. She's 26, and she's now Miss Olympia for her second time. So it takes about 10 years, 8 to 10 years of seriously training, and not saying you can't look good before then. Of course you look good, but to get that development and that, the harder, denser muscle comes with age. It's like wine.
Well, and I always say too, that's why there's always a lot of hype factor. If like there's someone who's like in their early 20s, they're coming out and they already look amazing because then everyone's like, oh, imagine what they're going to look like years from now. Because that's why, again, you see a lot of bodybuilders, they tend to be on the little bit older side, like 30s to 40s, where most athletes would be getting close to retirement. These ones are really just starting to really take off and blossom. But I always love to ask, because if you were to poll the general public, 95% of the general public would not be willing and dedicated enough to be able to get into shape, to be able to go on a prep, just to be able to get into that shape before you start it. But going on a prep, that is just notching things up to an extreme level where everything has to be so scientific. Your diet has to be measured foods. Everything just has to be so perfect. You have to eat at the right amount of times. You have to get all of your workouts in. It's just so down to earth and scientific. What is that adjustment like for you when you have to go into that prep mode?
Okay, so interesting question, because after I won in November, to do the nationals, I needed to have a lot more size. Like I was skinny back then, actually. Like I still had muscle, but it looked like I don't have enough muscle for the national level. So I was like, right after the show, So I went into like what people consider bulking up. But here's the difference. The way I did it was with clean food. So you still want to eat, even when you're eating to make gains. You want to eat clean food because you're not going to gain if you're eating at, McDonald's every day of the week. Now, I do have a quarter pounder once a week when I'm in my bulking phase, but that's it. No fries or nothing. I do have a quarter pounder. But here's the thing. It's like when you go from that, you're eating a lot more calories to having to drop the calories down to shed. You'll put on some body fat. It's inevitable, and you want to. And you'll put on some muscle and some water. So when you start to do your show prep, that's designed to give your body that adjustment to get rid of the water and to burn the fat off slowly so you don't become catabolic and lose all your hard-earned muscle. So that's what like a lot of people don't understand. You're not going into like deprivation where you're starving. You're feeding, but you're feeding yourself every 3 to 4 hours, and you want to make sure that you're getting the right macros, increments of protein, grams of carbs, grams of fat, tons of water. I'll drink like 2 gallons of water a day. That's the hardest part for me, is getting the water in, because you're just chugging water all day long. But your meals are shrinking considerably, but not so much that it's like overnight. You're just like, that's why you have to give yourself a lengthier prep time. So it depends on how much, body fat that you've actually put on in your off season. So that's why you don't want to be a pig and gorge yourself on everything and gain 30 pounds of fat. Now, some people after a show, they will do that, and then they will rebound and they will hold probably 10 pounds of water, 20 pounds more that they're gaining just from eating nonstop junk food for months after a show. So you have to get prepared to refeed yourself slowly, right? Because you're shocking your system. And the other thing is too, you don't want to put your body at health risks. Like people don't understand, even when you're a healthy person, if you're going to go and eat nothing but garbage for 3 months after doing a prep, your body is not going to like that. It's not going to be able to handle it. So it's not healthy. So like I say again, like you want to be healthy internally too. So it's definitely different, and you have to be prepared. This almost happens too. It's almost like a post-show blues kind of thing, even if you win, because it's like that high, and then you come down because you won, or maybe you didn't win. That could also be traumatic to you. You may have to go work on things. So just to get back in the grind of, well, now here I am again, I'm just lifting stuff, but you're not seeing the leanness coming in that you do for a show prep because you're in off season, and you don't want to see that. You want to be putting on muscle. So that's like kind of the thing too. It can be depressing almost because that high is now down here, And so a lot of times with people, it's good to take a week off and just go do something fun and not push yourself in the gym really hard when you come back, unless you really love it. And you're like, I was excited because I hadn't done it in so long that, so I was excited about coming back in the gym.
Well, I always say too, it's just like starting a business. You got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, it's just one of those
a lot of
things
people don't get that. How I meet so many people, they want to be lean, and they'll tell me like, well, I want to lean out. And I say, well, okay, you need to like build some muscle first. You don't just get lean when you haven't been training. You're already like, you want to lose weight and have definition and look better, but you're not muscular enough to just be like, I want to look like a bikini competitor or something like that. You have to train, And so sometimes people with weight loss, especially when they come to you for weight loss, they haven't been working out, and they're like, well, I want to lose this, I'm like, we need to be lifting some weights first so that you can actually build muscle mass, which will burn the fat. And you should see, I've got some clients in their 60s that look amazing, like amazing.
I mean, and that's just absolutely incredible. But the number one thing that I was the most shocked by when I started this podcast, I would have never guessed it in a million years. But for so many of these competitors, posing is the hardest thing for them. It's harder than their nutrition,
and they neglect it too. A lot of times,
it's harder than their diet. It's harder than their working out. I mean, I always like to compare it now to being a perfect driver. You can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
Well, that's funny you should ask that. In figure, when I came back, okay, I was like mortified. This is funny because I saw the girls, like when I did figure, you didn't do all this fancy stuff that they do today. You walked out there, you did quarter turn like a robot, and then you went off to the side until they called you. And that for me is comfortable. I like to be a robot. But I came back in it, I was watching the pros, and I'm like, if I try to look like I'm all cute up there, I'm going to look stupid because that's not my personality. So Jeannie told me that that's what they do at the pro level, and at the national level, they probably are not going to want to see a bunch of flare up there. She's like, so just do what we've been working on. And she's brilliant. She's so good at the posing. So I just trust her and I just follow her lead and I practice as much as I can. And I try to, but it's so different when I have to pose with her because she can make the corrections if I'm standing, like if you're leaning too far forward, if you're standing upright too much, like it all affects how your back is going to look. And then figure, they want you to have a very wide back and your shoulders around so your arms almost like hang out in front, like they're not doing anything. It's a lot different now from when I did it before. So I had to relearn because I had to change a lot of what I was doing. So that made it a little challenging, but it's better for me like when I'm on stage at the show because for some reason I end up just pulling it all together versus when I'm in my living room walking around practicing. I'm like, oh, that looks terrible. So I think when I'm out there and you're under the lights and you see the judging panel and the pressure is on you and you watch a couple girls in front of you, that always helps me to not be first. So when I watch a few girls in front of me, it's like, okay, I could do that. Like I see what they're doing, like, okay, that's not so bad.
So out of all the figure poses, what is your favorite figure pose and what is your least favorite figure pose?
My favorite pose is the back pose because that one I feel the most confident in. Like my whole posterior chain is my best assets, I think. Assets. But my least favorite is the side pose because they've changed it and my right side is a lot different from my left side. So I have to get comfortable because they feel completely different when you're posing them, when you're completely different. So I really just don't like the side pose. Either side. Actually, I'll say the right side pose, the right side.
Well, the best thing about the back pose too is that you can kind of, let your smile down. You don't have to be smiling. You don't have to be like, oh yeah, I'm so happy, which is funny enough. One of the guests that I had on last night, she was Australian and she was talking about how her feedback from her last show, the judge said if she smiled more, she might have placed better. So that's
tough.
that's
and you're thinking of so many things while you're posing and you're tensing that it's hard to. And so a lot of times when I'm trying to force that smile, I feel like my lips start shaking. And I'm like, oh, I hope they can't see this. This is terrible.
Well, and another thing that I would have never guessed too is that a lot of these posing sessions that competitors go through, they get more sore than they do after a normal workout usually. And after shows, you're usually the most sore that you've ever been just because, we've had guests that have been up there for like 50 minutes just standing there and doing poses. And, the body is not designed to do that, to be flexing, all the time.
And if you cramp in your calves or something, oh, holy mercy, that is like the worst pain you could possibly feel. It's awful. So I focus on that too. It's like, oh, don't get a cramp, don't get a cramp. But you know what? I'll tell you a story really quick. When I won the Emerald Cup 2004, this was really funny because how you mentioned if they smiled more. When I got to that show, now back then, like I said, there was no internet. You didn't know how big the shows were. And I didn't know that was the largest amateur show that they have. Okay. It's the most prestigious amateur show. So I came off of a 4th place finish at the Vegas in November and I felt completely robbed because the whole way the show went down, I just felt like I should have placed higher. So I was kind of bitter. And my training partner back then, he also did it. And I said, I want to go do this show in Washington. So he was like, I'll go with you, which was cool. So he went with me. And I did not like how I looked when I got there. I was like, I don't look as good as I did at the Vegas. I was a lot leaner. I just didn't feel good. So when we were walking to the event, I'll never forget, he goes to me, he said, Lisa, quit talking about it because nobody here cares what you look like in November. He goes, this is how you look now. And that it's too late. And I was just like, so I was just like all upset. So we get to the venue and it was the first time I'd ever done a show that was 2 days long. So it was Friday night that they did figure and then Saturday was going to be bodybuilding. So I was up first. So we checked in and everything. And then I told myself before I went on stage, I said, you know what? Nobody knows me here. Why don't I just act like I think I look like the best I've ever looked? And why don't I just go out there and just pretend? And that's exactly what I did. And when I walked out there, my energy completely changed. I made myself feel extremely happy to be up there. And I said, you work really hard. So what? Just go out there and have fun. And that's what I did. And damn it, first time they said my number and said in the center. And right there, especially back then, that's how they did it. When they put you in the middle, you knew you're the one that they're looking at for first. So I was just like, oh my God. I've never been called in the center before. Oh my God. So I was so excited. And I think that just made my I think it made me look better because I felt so much more confident, you know? And I think even if you don't like that fake it till you make it, even if you don't think, you know, this girl looks better than me. And I thought the girl that that took second, I thought she did look better than me. She was leaner than me. But she also, her posing was off. She did quarter turn to the left when they said right. She did a couple things and she posed kind of like awkwardly, like a monkey kind of. So she didn't really present her body to the best. So I think that that was definitely a huge advantage for me. And then that's why I ultimately won my class. So that made me feel like amazing. And there was 22 girls in my class.
Believe it or not, out of all the guests that I have on, that is a good chunk of their stories is like the shows that they ended up winning were the ones that they just said, you know, like, screw it, I'm just going to go out there and be me, where they relieve themselves of so much of this pressure, and it takes off so much of it where then they're just able to just wing it kind of. They're not so wing it, but they're just able to go out there with a fresh mindset. And that, believe it or not, is usually the 90% of the time, I'd say, of the stories that I get is how they end up winning it. So I don't know if there's a secret in that for any competitors out there listening, but I would definitely then try that to just, you know what, say, you know what, I'm just going to go for it.
Well, the whole fake it till you make it. That's true because if you, I mean, you can train in the gym and you can think you look amazing and you can be, you know, have followed your diet to the T and you did all your cardio and you look dry and you look like really ripped. But if you don't pose, like you were saying, if you don't pose properly and you don't wow the judging panel, you could come in fifth place. It doesn't mean the person that looks like they should win doesn't always win. Sometimes the person that looks like they should win gets second or third, or because of who knows why. Maybe standing up next to somebody else. And two, everything is energetic. How you feel on the inside shows up on the outside. So if you don't feel like you should win, or you are worried about something, or you're like, I hope they don't see this, or if you slip. One show at the Excalibur, I got second place, but this isn't why, but it was funny. My shoe broke. And so when they called us back out there to do our comparisons, I was like hobbling out there and the guy was like, oh, her shoe broke. The heel just snapped right off my shoe. So I posed standing on the ball of my foot on one foot, and the other foot I had my shoe on. But stuff happens.
No, absolutely. And now our last bodybuilding question before we get into kettlebells, because that's something that I think is really, really important. But for bodybuilding, I always like to ask. Yep, exactly. So for bodybuilding, I always like to ask, you know, all of my guests when they come on, whether they be, you know, bands and musicians or health and fitness guests. For my bands, I always ask, you know, what's that feeling like when you get to walk on stage and perform in front of hundreds to thousands of people? That also applies to the bodybuilders that I have on. What is that feeling like for you when you get to step on stage and show off all that hard work that you've been working months upon months for?
I pretend they're not there because I'm too nervous. I don't like to even do it in front of my dogs. I'm like, that's one of the reasons I was just telling my client this morning. I go, I could never do physique because you're out there too long. I go, I don't want to be up there too long and doing all the posing for physique because I go, it's just too much for me. I just like to do quarter turns and then go. So really, I love competing and I love it, but at the same time, I'm not like I'm not used to attention like that, so I kind of I don't know what to do with it. So I just kind of pretend the audience is empty or whatever. And I look at the judges and that's kind of like it.
Hey, you know, a lot of people, I'm glad that you're actually honest with that, because then so many people are like, oh, it's so great, I get to show off, I get to do all that. But, you know, every once in a while I'm like, okay, let's be honest. They're probably like scared crapless when they go up on stage and they're just trying to, you know, to get it to look better. But yeah, so I really appreciate that. But now, came to talk to you about kettlebells as well, because, you know, she's the kettlebell bombshell. So, you know, everyone can go and follow her on that. But what got you started with using kettlebells? Was there just a moment where you just said, hey, this seems like a fun way to train?
Well, actually, I was working in a Pilates studio, and one of the trainers in there, she was using them with her clients, and I thought they were like crazy looking and weird. And I remember telling my one client, that is so stupid. I will admit that I said that looks so lame. I would never do that. Yeah, right. Okay, sure. That's what I thought. And I said that. And the more I watched her do it, I didn't really know what to think. It was so foreign to me. Now, this is in 2007. Okay. So the girl that was doing it, she goes, Lisa, we're going to do a kettlebell certification and you should do it with us. And I'm like, yeah, no thanks. She goes, why not? It's so much fun. And you would be so good at this because you like weights and you like this and you like that. And I said, yeah, it just looks weird. I don't know. I don't really get it. And she goes, oh, come on. You know, we're going to get it like at a discount if we all do it as a group. So we decided to all do it as a group. And so we got our certification, and I'll never forget the person who certified us. She was getting married, and I learned more about her wedding than I did about the kettlebell, and I was kind of disappointed. I knew all about her wedding, though, what she was doing. I mean, this woman, that's all she talked about. And then she, oh yeah, and back to the kettlebells. So it was the lamest certification. So that's why, too, people get certified in something that doesn't mean anything. You can get a terrible certification, a cheap knockoff, awful certification, and go around, hey, I'm a certified whatever. That doesn't mean, you're really a good teacher. And so the difference between a good trainer that knows the knowledge and applies the knowledge is different from somebody with a piece of paper that says they did a weekend course. So that's what we did with this girl, and it was awful. So me being the kind of person I am, I said, this can't be right, and I cannot teach anybody this without knowing what I'm doing. So I went to the bookstore and I got Pavel Tsatsoulin's book, Enter the Kettlebell. I read it cover to cover. I practiced everything he said to do. So back then, RKC, which is Russian Kettlebell Challenge, that was the number one kettlebell thing. And everybody was RKC this, RKC that. That's where you get your Turkish get up, your hip snapping with the swing. Terrible. And this is part of it too. Kettlebells are outdated in that version. And a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it's true. Even Pavel himself came up with Strong First, his new thing that he does, because he changed a bunch of his old stuff. Now, he marketed it fabulously. A lot of people love his stuff, and it's all about, moving your bell like with strict tension and being all like, 8 to 10 rep kind of thing. When kettlebells, the real Russian kettlebells, actually used for high repetition. The whole thing about the tool, it's designed for high repetition. So, and the reason for that makes it different from a dumbbell is you can actually rest while you're holding it. So how you hold it in your hand allows you to rest and not put the weights down. So not to mention, it works your entire body head to toe at one time. So most of the fitness exercises that they do in the RKC are cool, and I still teach them, some of them, but then I also have other things that I do with it, which are the actual Russian sport. So I competed in the Russian sport as well I started in 2009 up until last year. So, but the training for that, totally different because it's endurance. So for an endurance sport, you can eat whatever you want. You can train, you train hard and everything, but it doesn't give you the same body that bodybuilding gives you. Because bodybuilding, you're isolating all your muscle groups. And with kettlebell training, there's no isolation. It's, you're basically doing ballistic drills. And if you are doing some kind of squats and lunges or whatever, you're going to be doing all compound exercises. So you're not picking one muscle group and singling it out, even though you can. And on my videos and on my DVDs and everything, I show you how you can do that if it's the only thing you have. But I recommend that you don't use kettlebells like dumbbells. I mean, that's like one of the primary things I teach is don't pick up a kettlebell in place of a dumbbell and start doing this. If you have access to a barbell sitting right there, do bicep curls with a barbell or a machine. Don't use your kettlebell, unless you're doing a full body workout. But there's a way, and I show these on my IGTV. I have lots of stuff on there.
I highly recommend everyone go and check that out. I'll leave a link to all that stuff down below.
Thank you. Yeah, but on my IGTV, I teach you all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with it. And I tell you, if you're going to train your arms with the kettlebell, you're not going to do the same exercises you would do with a dumbbell or a barbell. Now, that's where the problem comes in with everyday trainers that use kettlebells. They have no knowledge. They just are a trainer in the gym. They grab it. They start having their client do the same stuff, walking lunges. Something else I hate with the kettlebells, because when you hold a dumbbell in your hand, it's not going to strain your joints like holding the weights underneath, which is straining from your shoulders and your forearms. When you're lunging, you don't need to work your forearms. You shouldn't be. So you should rack your kettlebells, actually. You want to do walking lunges? Rack them and walk. Don't hold them like this. And there's so many things that people do that irk me like crazy with kettlebells because they're not good for your body like that. And then it turns people off when they get they hear, oh, you get all these amazing results using kettlebells because it burns so many more calories. Not the way you're doing it. You're just doing them like weight training. It doesn't do anything different. If you're not doing authentic kettlebell lifting, you're not going to see all the glorious benefits that they talk about in all the magazines and stuff. Like, oh, you burned this many calories. Well, you're just holding it like this and squatting. It's not doing anything different. So, and not that you can't do those things. Of course you can, but there's a way to use the kettlebell where you'll actually get the efficiency and the extra calorie burn. And another thing is people like to do exercising for so long that they don't understand on my DVDs. they're 18-minute workouts and 20. Well, that's only 18 minutes. I was like, that's because that's how it's supposed to be. The whole point of using kettlebells is the efficiency. So you aren't supposed to do it for an hour. But people, I want to work out for an hour. That means I did more. No, it actually is not meaning you did more. You may have done more stuff, because like a lot of times I have a free group too on Facebook called Kettlebellbombshells, and tons of workouts in there. And the thing is, people would say to me, well, I did that, but I did it 3 times. Well, right there, you're not supposed to do that 3 times. You're supposed to do it 1 time. And you should use a heavy enough kettlebell that it's a challenge to do it 1 time. And the reason I say only 1 time is because you're doing your whole body as a unit and you're burning a certain amount of calories. Doing it 2 and 3 times, okay, fine that you did that, but it's not necessary. So that's kind of like what goes on. The understanding of it is not there yet.
Yeah. Well, and I always say, I'm going to be completely honest. When I first saw someone using a kettlebell, I said the same thing that I said to someone who I first saw doing CrossFit. That's an injury waiting to happen, just because it looks like, even watching some of your IGTV, when you're doing some of those moves, I was like, oh my God, is she going to like break her back or something like that? Like doing these moves, because it just looks, they just make it look like you're about to like snap something out of place. But do you think that that's one of the reasons why people are so apprehensive about training kettlebells, is because it looks so dangerous when people are doing the moves, even if they're doing very properly?
I don't really think, I never got that it looks dangerous. I think that there's just not enough good knowledge out there. I think too many people don't have the knowledge of kettlebell training, and they watch YouTube videos, or maybe they even watch my videos, and they say, oh, okay, I'll just do this and that. And they don't really, like, there's a way you teach the kettlebell. And now, okay, so I have a coach for kettlebell sport, and he's like my best friend. He's the #1 snatch guy in this country. He can snatch. He only weighs like 175, and he snatches the 106-pound kettlebell, and makes it look easy. But here's the thing. He's an engineer, so his verbiage is so different from mine. So when he would try to give me corrections, when he comes out here,
it's all technical stuff, basically.
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah. And I go, Marty, okay, let me tell you how I would say that.
One of my best friends is an engineer too, so I completely understand what you're saying. Yep.
He kept talking to me about, like, he kept saying something when I was doing double swings outside the body with 2 bells, and he kept saying something about breaking the plane of something. I go, what? I go, oh my God. I was like, okay, you can't talk to people like that. I go, nobody gets what you're saying. So what you should say is keep your chest up. I go, here's how trainer, I go, you have to speak to people when you're training them with a tool like the kettlebell, especially with a certain verbiage that they're going to get it. Like, I teach people kind of like I'm teaching somebody who is in 1st grade.
So one of the things that I did see too when I was looking at your Instagram is that you do kettlebell along with regular, just strength training. What is the split that you like to do? Is it half kettlebell training, half regular weight training, or what do you like to do in, let's say, a week?
Okay, so, well, right now is not typical because since I'm doing a competition, I'm actually limiting the kettlebells because of the figure. So, but I actually have a program that I'm working on that combines both, and it's going to be really cool. It's strength training and kettlebells. So what I would do, what I'm teaching in the program is, say that you're going to do chest. I would do chest day. So I would have you do let's just say some incline dumbbell pressing and something that requires chest with the kettlebell. So I think I put chest and shoulders together. So then it would be like seesaw presses and some clean and presses. And then you can go into doing some jerk, because when you do the kettlebell jerk, a lot of it comes from, it's like you bump it with your legs to get overhead, but you use a lot of chest because you're going up. So I always tend to feel my chest a lot, doing some dips and doing things like that. And then so I would have the person do the kettlebells in the strength training workout if they had access to, the kettlebell at their gym, or they could even just do their weight training at the gym and come home and do the kettlebells or whatever. But I was like combining the exercises that kind of use those body parts. So let's say even for back, doing like some wide grip pull downs and doing some high pull exercises where you're pulling this way and doing things that are going to emphasize the same muscle groups, but also get your heart rate up and get that higher intensity burn that people want. And again, the workout should be about 30 to 40 minutes max, because you don't need to do more than that. And if you're going to break it down where you're training each body part, you're not going to do every single kettlebell move. You're going to do the ones that go along with the body part you're training. So I think it's going to be a really fun way for people to work out, because my best friend Kelly, who lives in Florida, she's an IFBB pro, and she said to me, nobody down here knows how to use them, and you should make a program where you do the weight training along with the kettlebells, and then they can do it at the gym, And I was like, oh, that's such a great idea. So she kind of gave me the idea to make that concept.
Is it Kelly Lynn?
Yeah, you know Kelly Lynn?
She's been on the podcast, yeah.
Yeah, she's like my best friend. I love her.
Yeah, she's one of the first health and fitness guests that we have on. Yeah,
Really?
I'll actually send you the link to the podcast we did because yeah,
she's so cool.
she was an awesome guest to have on. Yeah, and that's so great. And two of the questions that I love to ask every health and fitness guest. I mean, for the first one for me, just getting bigger and stronger. There are so many benefits to it, but the one negative is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water or anything that's tight and shut. And thirdly, I mean, I'm still at home. Yeah, and thirdly, I'm still at home with my parents, and I'm 24, but I'm moving out in 2 months. Basically, every time they come home with groceries, I have to pick up the car and drag it into the driveway and basically carry in the groceries. Has that been a similar experience for you, where people just take one look at you and they just assume that you can do favors for them?
No, you know what I do? I cover my body almost all the time. It's like, okay, so like I have a sleeveless shirt on now only because I happen to have this on what you call me, but it's funny. When I go to the gym, I wear a t-shirt and you can't even see what I look like. And I actually surprised myself last night because I have a gym in my complex. And when I went down there, I wore a shirt like this and I was like, oh, wow, I do look leaner because I always cover up. I don't know why. So a lot of people don't even know what I even look like.
She's got the best of both worlds. She can look like that and not get asked to move. I mean, yeah, I always say for me, it's a double. Well, yeah, well, that too. And it's a double-edged sword. I mean, being 6'3", I could have zero muscle at all. And people would be like, oh, yeah, tall guy, come and help out. So, yeah, I totally.
And anyways, any adult who's asking you to help them move their home, call movers and ask them. That's their job. You don't want to impose on your friends and make them not your friends.
Even yesterday, right before podcast, got a text. Hey, Ryan, you want to come help me move? I'm moving out next week. And I told him, I said, I don't want to, but I'll do it. But don't.
Yeah, but see, say no, because you know what? There's something wrong with telling people no.
Here's the thing, though.
Just say, you know what? I really don't, because if I hurt myself moving something, I can't.
Here's what I always tell them, though. I always say if it's on a weekend that I have to get my workout in first before I come and help you move, because I don't want to get too tired from moving your stuff that I won't be able to work out. But here's the thing, though. I'm way too Minnesotan to say no to someone. Where it's just the Minnesota nights where you have to. I was just like, okay, I have. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that I do need to work on. But yeah, that's a struggle that I think a lot of people.
Because you know what, you do need to work on saying no. Yep. Because I used to be like that too, and now I have no problem telling people no if I don't want to do something. And if they're going to be mad at me, let them be. But you know what? They'll ask someone else. They asked you first. So just think of it like, I'm honored that you thought of me first, but you know what? I really can't do it. But hey, I hope you find somebody else, and they certainly will. That's their cross to bear, not yours.
Absolutely.
You don't need to be dragging it over.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I always say, I mean, for the next question, it's my favorite question to ask, and it's the audience favorite as well. When it comes to clothes for fit people, I mean, fit guys have their own problems. Fit women have their own as well. Obviously, if you have big, broad shoulders, dresses aren't going to be your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time, where if you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are not made for that. What are some ways that you found that you're able to compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited, and the fact that you basically need to have two wardrobes, your off-season and your prep?
I know, right? Right now I fit into nothing. Well, what I do is I have a client of mine who is super generous, and she's bigger than me, but she's shorter than me. So a lot of her clothes fit me. So like she'll tell me when I'm putting on size, she'll say, well, you can just come over here and borrow something of mine. And so she has broad shoulders and like a big back. So when I'm in my off season, if I have to go somewhere nice and she's got really fancy clothes, so she's always like, oh, just go in my closet. So that solves my one problem. And that's nice because I get to wear really pretty stuff. And then my other thing is I just have clothes here that I've been able to wear like when I've been in prep, because my last few years since I was doing kettlebells, I was a lot smaller. I was like at one point I competed at 127 and now I'm like 155. So so I still fit into some of the clothes, and I buy they make these one pants for girls. They're Freddie USA. They're stretchy, and as long as you get something with some form of stretch in it, so they're actually cuter than jeans, and they are the best ass pants like ever for girls. So Freddie USA. So if you get those pants, they look amazing on, and then they stretch. So even if I put on a little size, I can still wiggle into them and they stretch, and then the waist and everything fits you good.
I always say, my guests from the UK, I've had about 8 of them on, they all swear by Freddy's, because apparently it's way more bigger in the UK than it is here.
Really?
But yeah, they swear by it. So I always tell my guests here that if you can find them, go and pick up a pair. But now our 3 final questions of the podcast. First of all, Larry Fitzgerald, how did you get in contact with him, and how did you start working with him?
I was so lucky. Okay, so one of my clients was his girlfriend at the time, but she went to pit with him. So him and Tyler Palco, Tyler is his best friend. Tyler was playing also for the Cardinals when I met him. So I trained the two of them together. And they came in and did Pilates with me, actually. And Larry Larry's so cool. If he lived closer, I would have got to train with him more, but he was in Arizona and stuff. So when he would come down and whatever, but he was, so I had a picture of him and Tyler on my website. Yeah, with me. Yeah, but it was really fun working with him. He's an amazing athlete, obviously, and can do everything and anything. And he's just, and a nice person too. So yeah, I had a good time. And then the next time he came down here, he went to the UFC gym, and I was kind of sad. I was like, I didn't get to see Larry. And then he ended up having to go to the hospital because somebody like kicked him in the face or something. And I'm like, if you would have come to me, I wouldn't have kicked you in the face. He would have got a better workout. But you know,
I was gonna
they
say,
wanted him to go there.
That's the $1 million video. I want to see Larry Fitzgerald doing Pilates. Just a guy that big and that long,
Oh,
and that huge. I mean, what's it like standing up next to him? Because how tall is he? Like 6'6" or something?
I think I felt very, very teeny.
Yeah.
I think he's actually, I don't even think he's that tall. I think he's 6'3" something, almost
okay.
6'4". I don't think he's that tall, but because he fit on my equipment.
Yeah.
And he, and Tyler too. Tyler is a big guy too. And he was actually, he played for a few teams. He was a quarterback, but he wasn't as, you know.
Oh yeah, I remember. I'm a huge football guy, so I remember the name Tyler. But yeah.
Yeah, Tyler's really sweet too. I did Tyler's nutrition for him, and he like got tremendous gains like really quick because he was already in shape, but he just needed to clean things up. But yeah, the two of them super nice, and it was a lot of fun working with him. And yeah, but watching him do Pilates, like they both, and it was so funny because my friend said to me, she goes, yeah, the next day Larry was like, man, my arms hurt. She goes, they were both complaining they were so sore. And I said, well, because it was muscles they weren't used to using, you know. So I don't know if he continued on doing it in Arizona, but I would have loved to been training him more frequently.
And well, now, and also part of that question, Jay Cutler too. How'd you get into working out with him?
I walked up to him at the gym one day, and see, this is how I am. I'm like, oh, Jay Cutler, I'm gonna go make friends with him. He was on the leg extension machine, but I knew he wasn't training for a show. I knew he was just training, and he was always friendly. So I just went up to him and I was talking to him. I was interested in competing in fitness and figure, and I asked him what he thought, and he told me who he thought I should contact and whatnot. And then he had gone to the gym. This is like a few months later, and somebody told me, Jay, I gave him your number. He wants to do Pilates. See, a lot of these guys are smart and they want to do Pilates because they know they need to stretch. So he contacted me. I was working at a Pilates studio. He started coming in, and then he only did a few, and then he bought some equipment for himself at his home. And then I got my own studio. I was opened up a kettlebell training place, and he started coming there, and he was doing some kettlebells. And then he actually had Flex Magazine come in and film us doing his thing. So it was on their online thing. It was really cool. So he had gotten me, you know, quite a bit of exposure. It was really nice. Jay's awesome. And he's also on my first kettlebell DVD. Jay does a little, what do you call it? A testimonial on there for me. So yeah. And you can get
Can they find that on Amazon and other places?
Well, you can, but you get a better deal on my website. Okay. On Amazon, they charge you for the two. On my website, $19.99 for the two of them. And I also have an online course on curious.com, which is a teaching website. I have 2 courses that actually have even more information. So if you don't want a physical product, you can do that.
That's awesome. I'll leave a link to all that stuff down below. And
yeah, cool.
Again, I really want to see that video of Jay Cutler because seeing I had that big try Pilates, I mean, good for anyone who doesn't know Jay Cutler. I'll have a photo of him up here right now in the video just to see how big, how massive that guy is.
And do you know what? When I used to train Jay, I used to sweat so bad because just somebody with that much muscle, when you're like working with them, they're hot. Like you could feel like I would feel heat coming off of him, and I would be like sweating. I'm like, oh my God, I'm all sweating working with him. It was just weird, but when you have somebody that's that muscular, it's like they're just like a big ball of fire, you know.
Yeah.
And Jay's awesome. He's so nice, and he's just a really, really cool person. So I got very lucky in becoming friends with him, and you know, so I've been to his house a million times, and you know, gone over there for Christmas and everything. Like we're, you know, good friends. And I just saw him recently, so he is engaged, or I think he's engaged again, and he has his own show here in Vegas, the Jay Cutler Classic, and he just had that. And I worked with my trainer at her booth there.
That is so awesome. And now, if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at with your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at with your career? What are some goals that you'd like to have?
I would like to be on the pro stage next year. So my goal is to become an IFBB pro, and I would love to compete at the pro level. And you know, my goal isn't really to be at the Olympia. I mean, that would be cool. That would be a great dream and everything. But I really just want to be on the pro stage. Like that's like more, that to me is a huge enough accomplishment, because once you're at that level, it's just, you know, and not saying anything. I mean, it's just a very difficult place to get to. I think it's hard to even get there. So I would start first with baby steps. I'll just like to go from nationals to pro level and see what it's like to compete as an IFBB pro. I think it would be really fun. And see, and that's something where I wouldn't take it to like, I have to be on the Olympia. Like, I would just like to be there to say that I am an IFBB pro and to, compete at that level. So right there, you're with the best of the best. And I think that would be really cool.
And that's awesome. And lastly, if someone were to walk up to you and say like, "Oh my God, you look amazing. I want to get into shape and I want to start working out." I've found that for so many people, just taking that first step in the gym is so hard for them because I mean, I used to be one of those people too, where I'd be like, if it's a Saturday, I'm not going to work out today. I'll wait until Monday to work out because it's the start of a week. Or I'm one of those OCD kind of people too, where it's like, it has to be like a start. But yeah, I just keep making those excuses. But I found once you step into the gym, it is very, very hard to walk out of it without getting a workout done. So what tips and tricks do you like to tell people just to be able to get them motivated to start their journey?
Well, some people like to come to me like privately because there's nobody around. So often that works better for them because where I train here, there's nobody here but us. So it's a lot more comfortable for them because no one's looking at them. So a lot of times I encourage them to just start with me one-on-one where I am and doing, my Pilates reformer and doing kettlebells before I even weight train them. And unless they want to do a show or something like that. But even so, I tell them you can get so many benefits just from doing the Pilates and doing the kettlebells combined, especially with women because they don't want to get big. A lot of women, unless you're like me and Kelly, we're like, we want to be big. But most women don't. And they have that look in their head that they want, which would be like a celebrity who looks really thin but looks toned. And so a lot of women are like, you could get those results from doing body weighted activities. And I tell them, I teach you body weight exercises that I give them homework with that they can do at home. So you don't even have to go to the gym. If you want to do your cardio, you can even do it outside and just walking. But I do encourage them to get their cardio in and that kind of thing and their nutrition. Because I just started a new girl this week. She did 2 sessions with me, no, 3 total. And she was such a fast learner. I was like, oh my gosh. And this is so funny. I just met with her Thursday and talked food with her and changed her food. Today, she looked different already. And I said, I know this is going to sound crazy. I go, you look different. What did you do? Did you go? She goes, well, my husband even said it. She goes, I was so hungry when you changed my food and I was eating and I had fish and I had this and I had that. And I said, already your arms look better. I could see your muscles in your arms. And it's because she was starving herself and my stomach is so sticking out that now I can't eat anything because I feel bad. But she was eating all the wrong things that was giving her like being bloated and whatever. And already 2 days later, I said, holy crap, like I can see your arm muscles. I go, oh my gosh, see what happens when you give your body food? Because a lot of women won't eat enough. And that's one of the biggest corrections I have to make. I'm like, you don't eat. You're starving. You don't need to eat less. You don't eat at all. Like you eat like 2, she's eating like a bird, like I go, oh my God, we got to fix this. So many times with the nutrition, people think you're going to take all away. And when you tell them, no, you're going to add this and you're going to add this and you're going to add this. And then they freak out because they think we're just going to be eating. Oh my God, how am I going to lose weight? I go, you're not giving yourself fuel. So how are you going to train hard? And everything we did today, I mean, I worked her really hard. So it's like she already is starting to benefit because she's already learned how to take care of herself a little bit better by eating more food. So more food is key sometimes.
That is one thing that I always love to tell people. It's like, you get to eat more than you're eating now and you can lose weight too and look better. It's like, what are you going to say about that? What excuse do you have against that? So that's honestly one thing. If I was a personal trainer, I would honestly lead with that. But now lastly, is there anyone or anything that you'd like to give a shout out to? Any sponsors or anything?
Well, actually, I don't really have any sponsors anymore. I'm lonely. If anybody wants to sponsor me for the USA, say, here we go. No, I'm just kidding. But no, yeah, like everybody out there who's competing and getting on their own journey. I mean, whether you compete or not, but all the people that are competitors, good luck to everybody and training hard because I know how hard it is. And I really appreciate having my fellow, figure girls, backing me up. I've got a lot of friends, that are also doing the USAs, which is going to be fun. And just every person out there, you're on your own personal journey. And, you have to start somewhere and you have to realize that the time is going to pass anyway. So you might as well do the productive things with your time. A lot of people don't want to, sorry, that went low battery, but a lot of people don't want to start because they feel like it's so far out there. But that's not the case. It's like you're going to sit here 6 months later is going to show up like that, and you didn't change because you didn't do anything. So if you start now, even if it's just walking 20 minutes after you have dinner, go around your block and walk a couple times, just something simple like that, just to start yourself getting into a habit. Maybe instead of thinking I'm going to work out every day and work out 5 days a week and go on this crazy diet, just start by going for a walk and maybe listen to your podcast and listen to health and fitness people and get inspired, or do something, buy a magazine and get ideas for recipes or something like that. Like, they sell health and fitness stuff all over the place. And so there's ways to be motivated. And if you're interested in doing kettlebells or learning something different besides just like bodybuilding stuff, there's lots of things out there. Like I said, I have my IGTV, and all this stuff is free. I have my Facebook group, so you can come over and learn everything from me, and you don't even have to buy anything. So,
well, and I always say that's what's great too, is that I really appreciate that you're doing all that stuff and really bringing that out there, because so many people just, when they hear people like, oh, all these, you have to do these programs or whatever, she's offering all this stuff for free too. So everyone just at least go and check it out. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? I highly recommend it. And thank you for all that stuff that you're doing. And I always say 49, and she has videos where she's like ripping out like sets of like 10 pull-ups a piece. And I was like, okay, this is just ridiculous, everyone. This is like, I'm out of here. So yeah, but that's just insane. And again, Lisa, we cannot thank you enough for coming on. And again, everyone, go and buy her stuff. I'll leave all the links to all that. I'm giving it my shout out. I'm giving it my shout out.
Thank you.
Go and follow her on Instagram.
I'll tell you what, you won't be sorry, because for $20 you get a lot. Just the instruction alone it's very valuable, because good kettlebell instruction is important if you're going to have it safe and get any kind of results. So that's something you definitely want to look into if you're interested in doing kettlebell training. Or you can hit me up too. I do online training as well.
Absolutely. So I highly recommend it. And again, Lisa, we cannot thank you enough for being on the podcast.
Thank
and again,
you.
Everyone go and give her a follow. This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.